And welcome back to Worst to Best, or Best to Worst, depending on how I feel and what mood I'm in. This one's actually a Worst to Best video. And yeah, as you can see by the way, this is from SyFyWire, this thumbnail right here. I didn't make this at all. So I wanted to get it out of the way before anyone throws the flag in for that. Copyright infringement. But, which it would be if I didn't call them out for that. So Shield and Sword is at this point now, well, almost, actually, yeah, it's over half a year behind us now. We know we're going to get the expansions. I'll be honest, I'm probably not going to dig in on the expansion. I don't like doing online shopping. Plus, I heard about that whole breach in Nintendo accounts and stuff like that. Luckily, I don't really have one, so I'm good. I don't even know if that was legit. I don't like taking chances online. I very rarely online shop. But we know we'll get a Diamond and Pearl remake down the line, and right now we're just waiting for that, plus whatever other games, and then the eventual Generation 9 we'll get a bunch of other starters. And I haven't actually done, for a while I had a starter video planned, my worst to favorite starters, but then the new starters came out, so I'm like, okay, I have to revamp that, plus my opinion on some may change. So I felt, seeing as we're in the quarantine time where I'm not doing box office reports or anything like that, and I have videos to do, and I like doing videos, why not do a video of my worst to best, or yeah, actually in this case it's worst to best, starter Pokemon. Now, keep in mind, we now have 8 generations of 3-stage evolutions. That's 80, if I'm getting my math right. That's 8 times that. That's oh no, that's not 84. Wow, that's 8 generations times 3, or 3 times 8 is 24 different Pokemon basically in terms of just the lines. Then you times that by, what am I talking about here? There's 24 within each generation because of each type, but then they each have 3 lines, so you times 24 by 3. That's 72 Pokemon we got to go over. So that's a lot. But basically what I'm going to do, how I basically graded it real quick, is that I graded it more or less in 3 different categories. Most of it's basically my opinion, but a little of it's the actual concrete, like, evidence. Most of it's my opinion. Like, how often did I use the Pokemon in the games? Big part of its design, how they look aesthetically is always a big thing to me. Because if I'm going to have one of these guys on my team, it's got to be cool looking. Or at least good looking. And then how effective they were in the game. Now, I will fully admit, there are Pokemon starters that I have never actually used. Therefore, I had to go more with the kind of the base evidence from other people using them and the how they like match up in their respective generation. So keep that in mind with this video, and let's just get to it. So I will be, and as always with these best to worst, or worst to bests. Wow, bests. Words. I don't want to bury half the lead where I go off of the best and then go to the worst or vice versa. So I actually save now the best and the worst, the absolute worst and best for the very end of the video. So we're starting with actually what I think at the moment is the second worst starter, in my general opinion. So to start things off, we got the Score Bunny line. And here's the thing. To me, with a starter, you obviously have your starter's first form, you have your second form, you have your third form. What your selling point with your starter really is its first and final form. What you get when you start your journey and what you will end up with at the end of your journey. The middle stage really is just that, I've always heard it as described as the awkward teenage phase, and that's very true. But there should still be a sort of flow to the design of the Pokemon in terms of, you can see where this is going. Even in the base form, you can see where it's going. And we'll definitely get to that further down the line. Right off the bat with Raboot, I get it. It's a rabbit that evolved from Score Bunny, but I don't get where this thing's going when looking at it. It goes from a rabbit that's got these little bandages on it, looks kind of like a soccer player, which it ultimately turns into, versus this farming ninja? How am I supposed to understand where it's going from farming ninja rabbit to soccer player Power Ranger? Look, I'll be honest, Score Bunny actually isn't this. It's the second lowest on the list. Like, it's got the bronze medal for, I think, the starter overall. But even the worst starter has something over Score Bunny, and that, quite frankly, is Score Bunny as a Score Bunny is the first Pokemon starter that I didn't even like the beginning starter. And even with the very beginning, like the base form starters of the starter Pokemon, you can still get a general idea of where they go. I don't see where this went. Maybe it's because it's a rabbit, but it's really the fact that you just took Chespin's face and put it on a white and red rabbit. I didn't like this design from the get. I hate Rabbit's design, quite frankly. Like, hate's not the right word. I don't get this design. Cinderace, I give a little bit more props to. Cinderace is nowhere near as bad, in terms of, it's actually not a terrible design. It does have a bit of a cool flair to it, and it's got a cool attack. Ultimately, though, I don't really plan on using this much unless I do a fire playthrough with Shield and Sword. And quite frankly, all the Galarian starters, because they're all mono-typed, they all fare the same in the in Sword and Shield, with the exception of Cinderace. Because here's the thing, they all have at least one gym they are strong against. In fact, they all actually have two gyms they're strong against when you really break it down. The catch-22 is it all depends which game you're playing. If you're playing Shield, Cinderace is good against the Grass Gym and the Ice Gym. But if you're playing Shield, or if you're playing Sword, then GRUKEY and Sabu are better used against the Rock Gym because of version exclusive gyms. And it's better if you're, and honestly, that kind of put them down lower on the list because you'll have one game where you have two better options than one, and one game where we have the better option over the two. So you get more options in one game than you do the other with the other two starters. So Score Bunny for me is just, I think it's just maybe I don't like the idea of a rabbit starter. And there was a starter, it was a fake leak. It was a great fan made. You probably recognize it, where it was like a black and white rabbit, white and red rabbit with like a black puffy smoky like poof, and it accompanied a lemur grass starter and a platypus water starter. That looked a lot better to me than what we got with Score Bunny, quite frankly. Score Bunny just frankly looks like you took Chespin's face, altered it slightly, and just put it on a rabbit. So Chespin comes in at my 23 spot for starters. Moving on with Piplup. Piplup is one of the only starter Pokemon that I have never used. And of the three that I have never used, this one, admittedly, is probably the one I would at least give the most shot to, just because of the typing. Here's the problem for me with Piplup, is that Piplup is cute, and that's it. Like, it's too cute if you're gonna ask me. Every starter has a level of cute to it, but you can still see where the cool aspect is going to go with that Pokemon. Even with something like Torchic, which is cute. Torchic's a very adorable Pokemon. You can still see the potential in the bird, probably because Torchic is a land-based bird. It also had a pointier beak. It's not that cute round beak. It's got, little talons, and then you can see it turn to Combuskin and see where the evolution line goes from there. With Piplup, Piplup, unfortunately for me, is one of those guys that he's just too... Honestly, he looks like a Care Bears character. What was that? Cozy Heart Penguin? He looks like a Care Bears character. Piplup, I think is the name of his evolution. I'll actually say this flat out front. I like Piplup better than I like Empoleon. Piplup is a decent escalation from Piplup. Or Prinup. I can't remember the actual name of this guy. It's a weird play on the Piplup's name. It's a decent escalation from, or decent evolution from Piplup. Now you can see a bit more of the cool phase to it. It looks more like a convincing penguin, and it's got the cool crest. It's a decent design. Honestly, it's a decent design. I still probably wouldn't use it. I'll be honest, I kind of like the penguin aspect in general. But still, it's a step up. But with Empoleon, I get what they're going for, like this King Emperor Penguin, but he's wearing a tuxedo, and the beak is the trident, which in theory should be cool, but for me, it just doesn't work. And then I actually had to figure out how well he did in the region. he doesn't do well in the Sinnoh region really at all. When you really break it down, by the time you even have Empoleon, you'll probably be on your 4th gym, maybe the 5th. And at that point, there's no gym he's actually strong against. The only gym that Piplup's actually legitimately good against is the 1st gym, and that's only because of its typing, and it can learn a water attack. So after that, you got fighting, you got grass, which it sucks against. You got fighting, which it's not going to do anything against. If by the time you get to the 4th gym and it's evolved, it's water versus water, so it's kind of just a neutral ground. Ghost, it doesn't do anything against. Steel to water versus steel, kind of just a wash. Ice, it's technically strong against, but she has enough counters to that it's kind of just a neutral wash as well. And then you got electric, which the steel's resistant, but the water's still weak. So Piplup for me, it does not work, at least not in my mind. I got to start speeding this up because this is going to be a long video otherwise. Moving in the I believe this is going to be the 1 spot. Gotta remember, is the Sabu line. Now, obviously you can tell, GRUKEY was my favorite of the 3. What happened with these lines? Like, these guys, I'll even say this, Scorbunny could have had a lot of potential, but it just didn't live up to it. Sabu, man, did you see some of the fan art for Sabu? Sabu had some great fan art, what it could turn into, and then you get Sabu is great. Sabu's cute. Sabu, unfortunately, has the same problem as the other stars in terms of effectiveness, so we're really just talking about design here. Then you get Sizzle, which, like, it's trying to capture the Dartrix motif, I think, from the Rowlet line a little bit, like this emo lizard a little bit, but what is this? Like, this looks like a fan-made thing. Like, this is honestly dumb looking. It doesn't have a lot of specificity to it compared to, like, other stars. Like, even Raboot had more going on than this thing does. Even Thwackey does. This is just an emo lizard. That's it. Its color scheme even doesn't make that much sense when you break it down. Like, where's this green coming from on his hands? And then you get Inteleon, which Inteleon's not as bad. There's a conversation I had with a coworker who plays Pokemon as well that I had, that we were talking about another starter on the list that is a really good point. I think it makes and that is really indicative of this one as well, is that if you were to tell me this was a different evolution line, this evolved from something other than these, and this was just a standalone Pokemon Inteleon, I could probably get behind it a lot more. But the fact that it's the starter, I think the biggest issue for me, besides that the appearance is just kind of, I get it's supposed to be a spy, but it's still kind of, it's definitely grew on me more than, say, Cinderace did. But I think the biggest problem I have between with the Galarian lines is that, unlike with the last couple generations, there were no clear-cut specialties in terms of combat with these new guys. GRUKEY was clearly the big beater. The Rillaboom was the beater. But both Cinderace and Inteleon are speed fighters with little defense. That's not how it should have played. One of these guys should have been the heavy offensive guy. One of these guys should have been the special attacker. And one of these guys should have been the speeder. That's the way it should have been. Or defense. Basically, one of them should have been pure attack, one of them should have been pure defense, and one of them should have been pure speed in terms of their specialty, and then having the other, stats leveled out with that. Instead, what we got is two speeders that are just they're glass cannons, basically. Like, they got great offensive stats, but they are squishy. And I think that's the biggest problem, that we didn't get enough diversity between them. Hopefully a Gen 9, whenever that happens. Anyway, it will. Trust me. Sword and Shield's made I'm certain Sword and Shield made more than enough money to be like, oh yeah, we need to keep making more generations. But yeah, Inteleon line did not work for me. And again, you need to be able to see where an evolutionary line is going with the second one. I think that's, if for no other reason than that, besides the fact that it's just the intermediate phase between the cool and the baby, you need to see where the evolutionary line is going, and you just don't see that with this Pokemon. So for me, Inteleon came in, or the Sabu line came in at number 20, or excuse me, at 21. Coming in at the number 20 spot is another one that I will never use, the Litten line. And that sucks because the Litten line, man, the Litten line had a lot of potential in those first 2 forms. It really did. I mean, you look at the Litten line, it's like, it's a little tight. You can tell. You can tell it's going to turn into a tiger. Like, that's cool. All right, what we get next? Tori Cat, still on all 4s, too. What is Game Freak's problem with keeping one fire starter on all 4s? Even the grass and water starters have kept at least a couple of them on all 4s. Hell, one of them took the legs off the damn thing with Snivy. But you get, it's like, okay, it's Tori Cat. Again, this cool tiger. It's got a little fireball. That's really cool. And Incineroar really isn't that bad of a design Pokemon. First off, it's clear this is a fire fighting design. Don't give us this weak-ass excuse that it's a fire dark type. It's clearly a fire fighting. You designed it off of a freaking wrestler. It's a fire fighting type. Live with this choice. You would have pissed off a lot of other people making another fire fighting, but at least you would have stuck to your principles. But I get it, it's a heal. That's why it's a dark type. But look, is it a cool design overall? Yeah, again, same issue I have with Inteleon and with another individual coming up on the list later on, is that as a Pokemon itself, it's a cool looking Pokemon. It's a tiger wrestler, like El Tigre. I get it, that's cool. Not as a starter. No. Or at the very least, be honest that it's a fire fighting type. Be honest about that. I don't understand what Game Freak's problem was going to be. Because here's the thing. If it's true that all the fire stars are based off the Chinese zodiac, all we got left is the snake, the sheep, the horse, and the ox. Now the ox I can see turning into a bipedal one because you can make it into a minotaur. I'll have no problem with that. What is your idea for the sheep, horse, and snake? You better go the superior route and make sure that snake doesn't have legs. Hell, make it start out without legs, for God's sake. What was the big problem with that? I don't know. But eventually it gave it. Anyway. Again, it's not that this is a bad idea. I just wish they would at least been honest about it. But even so, I don't mind design, but compared to what the other 2, I just am not a huge fan of this. Plus, the Litten line is not very good throughout the island trials, let's be honest. It's not good on the first island. Second island, the only thing it's really good against is the grass trial. And that's it. Think about that for a second. I mean, yeah, it can learn dark type moves, so it might be able to help a little bit with the ghost trial. But that's it. Nothing. That's it. The Litten line's another one where the potential, sadly, was just wasted. So that was their number 20 spot. The number 19 spot goes to Torchic. Now we're basically getting into the guys, except for one other one on the list. We have the one other one on the list that I've never used is actually our one worst. But now we're getting into the guys who I am much less angry at, and it's more just personal preference in a lot of these, and versus how useful they are. Unfortunately, when actually looking this up, or at least in terms of how useful they are, Blaziken actually isn't that good. When you actually look at the Hoenn region and how good each starter is, Blaziken's really not that good. Like, the Torchic line's not that good. It handles the Rock Gym fine because it can learn Double Kick. It's neutral against the fighting. It's neutral against the steel. It's neutral against the electric Watson, neutral against Flannery. It can handle Norman okay because it can learn fighting techniques. Granted, the slack off is good, but still, it can handle that fine. After that, though, it can't handle the flying gym for crap. Yeah, it can learn fire techniques, sure, and it can handle Skarmory, but it's actually pretty not that great against fire just because of its fighting type or flying type. The Rock Gym, yeah, it can learn it has fighting techniques to take on Soul Rock and Lunatone, but the problem is they're dual Rock Psychic, which means the Psychic negates a bit of that fighting, and it's not good against the Water Gym. I'm not really going past that for like the Elite Four and stuff. I'm mostly focusing on like the main playthrough in terms of the gyms. So Blaziken, actually, when you break it down, taking Megas out of the equation, obviously, isn't actually that great in Hoenn. But that said, as a overall starter, I've still used it plenty of times. Like the Hoenn starters I've actually used pretty equally, with one being a little edged over the others. But Torchic is a cute Pokemon. Torchic is a cute design for a starter. Blaziken is a pretty badass looking starter. Is it the best looking starter? No, it's far from the best looking starter. It's not my favorite either. should know that what I'm factoring in as the best and the worst is not indicative of what my favorite is, because I had to put in a little bit of actual facts into these instead of just my personal opinion. So while it's a lot of personal opinion, there is enough facts in here to make it not quite accurate to what my favorite is. But I think what really kind of sinks the Torchic line for me a little bit is Combuskin. Like, I get where Combuskin... I think the problem for me with Combuskin is the beak looks weird on this thing. I actually think that's my biggest problem with Combuskin, is that its beak looks really weird. Yeah, I mean, are you seeing that? The beak kind of looks weird a little bit, doesn't it? Like, it's kind of like an open mouth, but it's like this little bump. I don't quite get it in terms of a design statement, but again, it's that awkward teenage phase. There's nothing ultimately wrong with a Torchic line, just hardly my favorite. Coming in now with, at the number, I believe it's, where are we now? Just, into, I guess you're just going to count it up real quick. Let's see here. If that was 24, 23, 22, 24, 1, 20. We're on the 18th. 18th spot goes the Popplio line. Now, I'll fully admit, I've actually only played through Sun and Moon once. I got Moon. I only played through Moon once. So I only used the one star, and it was Rowlet. It wasn't Popplio. But whenever I get around to playing another playthrough of it, I will probably go with Popplio as my second choice. It was my second favorite. Now, a lot of people kind of crapped on Popplio when it came out. And I'd be lying to say I couldn't at least somewhat see where they were coming. Like, it's a little seal clown. It's a little performer. But at the same time, it's a little seal clown. It's adorable. I like it. It's cute. And that's what your star's kind of supposed to be. It's supposed to be cute. Brianni, on the other hand, that starts to go into a different route. Like, I start to see where it's going. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And then we get the Primarina. Now, should note real quick that the Popplio line is actually a little better in the Alola region than the other lines, due to the fact that it can handle the fire trial, but it can also take on the Kahuna, who's a rock type leader of the second island, and I believe it's fairy type aids you in the battle against the dark type Kahuna on the third island. So it's actually a bit more effective than the other two. My biggest problem with this line actually is where the line ends up, and not because it's a bad design. Primarina is actually a pretty good design. The problem is your Pokemon is usually your star is like 87% or 87.5% male most of the time. This is clearly a female design. Now, I have no problem with you representing all that stuff. No, but let's be honest here. It's a female design. This doesn't make sense based on what we know of starters and their gender, percentages. Honestly, what you should have done is made this like the first one to have a gender unique evolution. Like, have Primarina be the gender, the female equivalent, and then maybe have a bit more of a male version of Primarina instead of calling it Primarina. Called it's the Prima, not Prima, but I don't know. You'd have to make it more like a sea lion, kind of like a Neptune thing, because it's clearly like a mermaid. But ultimately, it's just really what kills this for me is its design. Like, I like it, but I think you messed up when making it so obviously female when it's clearly most of the time not. I don't know, and I'm not trying to getting people say, gender equality. No, it's just, look, most of the time it's male. Make it look either male or make it look like you couldn't tell a difference if it were male or female. I think that would have been, honestly, the best route to go. Make it look like you can't tell whether it's a male or a female, because most of the time with these starters, you can't. So that's Popplio. On number 17, we have the one I was talking about, the Oshawott line. The Oshawott line is one of those things, as I was saying earlier, I get it, it's supposed to be an Otter Samurai. Oshawott, by the way, is not very useful throughout the gameplay of Black and White, where it's only really good against the ground and the ice gym. But besides that, is that the Oshawott line, you get it. Oshawott, cute little otter with a shell on that you can take off and cut people with. Awesome, cute, adorable. Dewott, now you get to see that bit more of that samurai. That's pretty cool. You should see the blue that goes into Samurai. Dewott's pretty cool. You go from an otter to all four seal with a whale tail and a sword that's a helmet. Again, if this were a separate Pokemon that wasn't a starter, it actually would be a pretty cool Pokemon. It would. You could have easily kept going with the otter motif and a samurai sword, but no, what were you thinking on this Game Freak? I don't know what went wrong here. It should have stayed on all fours, or it should have stayed on all yeah, you can't keep a fire starter on all fours, but you immediately put a bipedal water style on all fours. Like, where's your logic here, Game Freak? Like, what is going on here? But as I was saying, it's just you should have kept it a bipedal otter. Now again, make it a giant otter for God's sake. You could have given it more hair. You could have kept the whiskers. Would have had no problem being like this old, like aged Ronin samurai otter with the whiskers. That would have been really cool because you could see the whiskers on Duat. You can see where it's going. I don't know what happened here. I really don't. Again, it's not a bad design for an overall Pokemon. It's just not the best overall. Coming in at the number 16 spot, and I believe we're at the 16th spot now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yep. Is the Fennekin line. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to be a little controversial here. I actually don't mind Delphox. I think Delphox is okay. I don't love Delphox. Don't get me wrong here. Delphox isn't my favorite in the world. But Delphox is far from bad in terms of a design. This is not the worst design we've seen for a Pokemon. Fennekin, adorable. Braxton, actually not a bad idea. It's like you can see where the witch concept's going. It keeps a wand, a stick wand in its tail, bushy tail. I can see where people kind of got a little upset with Delphox, no doubt, but I don't hate it. And a fire psychic type, honestly, going over all the other guys, it actually type-wise has the best spread against all the gym leaders in Kalos, because it totally can take out the fire gym, the bug gym, no problem. It struggles against the next gym, obviously, with the rock. But then being psychic and obviously having psychic type moves at that point for the third gym, can handle it no problem. Handles the grass gym, no problem. And then it kind of just goes neutral for the rest until you get up to the final gym, the ice gym, completely can own that as well. So, weirdly enough, while it's probably most people's least favorite starter of that region, it actually, at least when you go type and like attack-wise, is the best starter of that region in terms of typing and how well it goes. But if I'm going to be honest, it's still not the best. It's hardly the best. There's a reason it only ranks at 16 out of 24. I like the first two stages better. It is just a better designed Pokemon in the first two stages than what we got. Because when you really break it down, I think the biggest problem is, at least for me, with the problems I do have with Delphox, even though I'm a lot more lenient on it than other people, is that it's what's the best way for me to put it here? It is not that drastic a difference from Braxton. I think that's the biggest issue, is that it goes from on all fours to bipedal, and then it's just a bipedal bushier version of Braxton. I think that's the big problem there. It's just a bigger version of the second form. But oh well. Coming in number 15 spot, GRUKEY. GRUKEY, whoa. That was the problem. There we go. There I am. It is GRUKEY. GRUKEY line is by far my favorite line in the Galar games in Sword and Shield. It's just a cute. It's a little chimp. It's a little chimp that, and he likes to bang on things. And then he turns into Thwackey, who admittedly was a bit of an awkward form, but compared to the other two, nowhere near as awkward. And now he's got two sticks, and he's kind of like got him in this bun thing right here. And, it's almost like a samurai. And then he turns into Rillaboom, this cool drumming gorilla that carries a wood drum on his back. Rillaboom is just a sawbuck. He's got the Super Saiyan 3 hair going. I've seen people make that comparison. He's just a beefy, cool, he's like a bad gorilla. And there's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't. Honestly, this is just a solid little evolution line, in my opinion. And it ranked as high as it did because compared to the other two, where I might use them for some type playthroughs, I had no GRUKEY's my main man here. Like, I'll choose GRUKEY 9 times out of 10. Like for me, GRUKEY's not a perfect evolutionary line by any stretch of the means, but it's a solid evolutionary concept. I think the only problem with GRUKEY's line ultimately is the Thwacky part of it is a little awkward looking. It is, but all the middle forms are on some level awkward looking. Coming in at the number 14 spot, now we're going to near that next path, is the Chespin line. And similar to a couple other of the guys I've commented so far on this, Chespin, I'll say this, is actually my favorite of the Kalos starters, but he didn't rank higher than Froakie for a couple reasons. And one of those reasons actually is that he actually is the worst choice, technically speaking, for a playthrough of Kalos, because he can't handle the bug gym very well. Yes, he can learn rollout, but that doesn't happen for a little while. But he can easily handle the rock gym. He struggles pretty much against most of the other gyms, though, with mild exception to maybe say like the ice. If you got a good fighting type attack going on, maybe you can handle the ice gym okay. Honestly, you can see, comparing it to Scorbunny real quick, where they basically kind of just copied and pasted Scorbunny's face onto Scorbunny and just altered it slightly. But the difference again between Scorbunny and Chespin is Chespin has this cool little like helmet, so you can get an idea of where you could take Chespin on some level. Let your imagination go free. I will fully say Quilladin's kind of just like, what? But I think the problem for me with Quilladin is the nose. That pointy nose is really weird. And I really like Chestnut. Chestnut is a cool, just Paladin Knight concept. My big problem with Chestnut, quite frankly, is the color palette. I think you need to swap the white with the green on there, because he's a grass type with barely any green on him. He's got it on his arms, he's got it around his neck, and he's got it like around his shoulder pads. But that's about it. What I think you need to have done was make the white like wrapping dot, whatever this is, honestly. You need to make that green, and then swap out, like, say, the green on the shell part of it with white, and then the bracers maybe a darker green, or make those brown. That's what I think you should have done with Chestnut's coloring. Otherwise, I like Chestnut quite a lot. Chestnut is actually a pretty cool dude. Like, he's a freaking squirrel. He's a freaking squirrel knight. That's pretty dope. That's pretty dope to me. So yeah, Chestnut comes in at my 14th spot. At my number 12 spot, or 13, I think he's 13. At my number 13 spot, is the Froakie line. Froakie just barely edged out Chestnut. And I'll be honest, it's mostly because he is a more effective Pokemon to use in Galar. And it's also because, not Galar, in Kalos than Chestnut is. It's also because Frogadier is a much sleeker, easier evolution going into Greninja. Frogadier is it's clear. Frogadier is a very sleek design. He's a very nice looking middle stage. That's where he ultimately won out over a lot of these guys. The fact that his middle stage is just a lot cleaner. Greninja, I'll be honest, I'm not as big on Greninja as a lot of people. I know a lot of people love Greninja, especially competitively. Like, he's like very well liked competitively, but he's still what's the best way to put it? I like it like the ninja concept, but it's like his tongue is his scarf. That's the weird thing. That part always bothered me, and just in terms of a concept, like, why? Why is his tongue a scarf? Like that, it's unique, but do I like it? I don't know if I like it. Anyway, coming in at number 12, now we're in the final half, is the Snivy line. And this kind of, I'll admit, there's a lot of bias to this. Like, Snivy line isn't that good, quite frankly, in a playthrough. But I love Snivy as a design. Like, Snivy is like almost like a perfect starter. Like, Snivy itself is a perfect starter to me. Servine, nice escalation, and Serperior. My only biggest problem with Serperior is its mouth stays that little line. It should have been a little more like a snake mouth, like a bit more of a wide, like a Viper or an Ekans or something like that, or an Arbok. Instead, it just still has this smile on it. But snakes are one of my favorite animals, if not my favorite animal. So I'll admit, there's a lot of bias going through this choice right here. But ultimately, look, it's more that it was a good design. It's probably the best design of the Unova trio. It is probably the best design of the Unova trio. Because unlike one of the other guys, and unlike Emboar and Tepig, unlike Oshawott and Samurott line, it stuck to what it was trying to do. It was a snake, stuck up, and you got into this royalty aspect. It had stuck what it was trying to do. At number 11, we got the Chikorita line. Now, Chikorita line to me is just a tried and true good line. Not for usefulness, mind you. I'll fully admit, I've used all the Johto stars multiple times. It's the worst of the three. But in terms of just the concept, Chikorita is like another one that's a near perfect grass starter. It's this little theropod pear with a leaf on its head. Turns into this little dinosaur with this cool bladed looking leaf. And these plants are going to bloom. Meganium. It's just a Brontosaurus with a friggin' flower over its around its neck. It's kind of the perfect little grass starter. At least in that. Now again, in terms of usefulness, that's kind of what killed it on this list. But it's still great in terms of just adorable. Like we know Ash's was adorable in the original Johto series. So ultimately, it's just a good designed Pokemon. Is it like completely useless? No, because I think I'm trying to remember which gym it's at least okay. Actually, it's not okay against any gym. So it really, it can learn some techniques that help, but it's actually the hardest one to use throughout the playthrough. Coming in, though, at number 11 is Mudkip, who's not hard to use through your playthrough. In fact, Mudkip actually had a really good ranking in terms of how effective it is through Hoenn, because it goes great against the first gym. It's immune to Watson's electric types, provided you can get to Swampert, because I don't believe Marshtomp is water ground. I think Marshtomp might be water ground. I'm actually forgetting if Marshtomp is water ground or not. One second. Marshtomp. Marshtomp is a... Okay, it is a water ground. Yeah, so, at that point, you'll have no problem dealing with Watson. It handles Flannery just fine. It also actually kind of can handle the Psychic Gym as well, because they are rock psychic types. So you'll be able to use just water and ground. And, their levitate ability should probably negate the ground. But the water types you'll have no problem with. However, after that, it's pretty much either goes even or it gets screwed over by the Flying Gym. But Mudkip, again, it's a cute little Mudskip axolotl. Marshtomp is, again, another really good middle stage. Just this happy-go-lucky kind of looking salamander on both legs. And Swampert's a pretty beast-looking... Like, Swampert's a tough-looking customer. I always liked Swampert's design. It's a pretty beast-looking final evolution for a starter. And, it's just this big salamander, which is really cool. But that is my number, if I've got that right, is my number 11. Coming into my number 10 now, if I got this right. Oh, yeah, we got another water one coming up here, folks. We got one of the, not quite the OG water. Squirtle's a bit far up on the list. But we got another classic. I love the Totodile line. The Totodile line actually does a little better than most pure water starter lines because it can learn ice moves. So it is a bit more, it is able to handle the region a bit better than, say, like a Squirtle could handle Johto. Those are videos I'll probably do at some point. Like if you were to take the starters of a different region and put them in another region, how well would they do? But like Totodile, for me, Totodile is another one that is a perfect, or close to perfect water sign. It's this little baby crocodile. Look at his face. Look at his face. Oh man. Like Totodile is just adorable. It really is. And then Crocodile, you get this little caveman crocodile. He's like, ooga booga. I will say this. For Alligator, I love for Alligator, but for Alligator, I will be completely honest. For Alligator, does leave a little bit to be desired from a crocodile-based starter. I would have liked to see something a bit more from that. But then again, we got other crocodile stars like with crocodile Pokemon, like with Crocodile. And Crocodile does look cool, even though, again, I would have preferred to see him on all fours instead of two legs, but whatever. Actually, come think of it, we really haven't got much other in terms of crocodilians. I mean, we got the Totodile line and we got the Crocodile line. We got any other crocodile-based starters? I don't think we do. Yeah, with that, you know what? Gen 9, give us another not Crocodile starter, but give us another Crocodile Pokemon. I'll be down for that. But anyway, now we're into the final 10, if I'm not mistaken, as I'm getting my list. Yep, final 10. And we are on the Charmander line. Now, for the longest time, I wasn't a big fan of this. Because my sister was a big fan. Like, she oozed Charizard. Like, she loves Charmander line completely. I think the problem for me was they were just they are too oversaturated. Like, next to Pikachu, you could make Charizard in its line the de facto mascots of Pokemon. And I don't think many people would complain about that. But still, they're not bad by any stretch of the means. They're my number 10 for a reason. Because when I get past the little bit of bias I had against them, it's a little fire lizard turning into a bigger fire lizard, turning into a freaking dragon. And yeah, what's not cool about that? Unfortunately, where Charizard gets shafted is that Charizard actually kind of sucks in terms of how good it is in Kanto. Charmander really isn't that great because it sucks against the first 2 gyms. It's neutral against the next one. It can handle the grass gym just fine. By the time you do evolve it into Charizard, which will be around that point, it's now a fire flying, which means it actually sucks now against Sabrina even more. And it can maybe do some damage against the ground gym. But that's about it. Charizard actually isn't that good in Kanto when you really break it down. But still, great. It's a great, overall good design. It's a solid starter of a line. I can't hate on it too much. I've used it before. It's probably the one I used the least amount of times, that's to be fair, but still. The one I used the second the most least is number 9, Squirtle. Squirtle, Wartortle, and Blastoise. These guys, the OG starters, they're pretty solid. Like, there's been better water starters at this point. I'm pretty certain there's been better water starters. At least in terms of design, there have been. But, I mean, on this list, not so much. In terms of just design. But in terms of usefulness, they're more useful than Charizard is. They can handle... Squirtle can handle the first gym, no problem. It can handle the ground gym and fire gym without an issue. And it can handle 3 gyms, no problem, without learning any technical moves. It's a little turtle. That little face is adorable. Wartortle's always been a bit of a weird design because, here's the thing. You look at Squirtle, you look at Blastoise. You can clearly tell these guys come from the same cloth. The tail's different, but you can see where the tail would evolve. I don't quite get why Wartortle's ears... Wartortle's ears clearly turn to Blastoise ears, but why does Wartortle's tail turn just into that? I don't quite get the evolutionary reasoning behind that, but oh well. Wartortle's always been a cool guy. I like Wartortle. Coming in, though, at number 8, I believe, is... Wow, we're far beyond that. Coming in number 6. How did I lose track of this? 6 is, am I getting that right? Yeah. Oh, wow, we went from 8, 7, 6. Anyway, coming in at the number 6 spot is Turtwig, the superior turtle Pokemon in my mind, because they kept it a turtle. Turtwig, to me, is a cute little snapping turtle. Now, Grotle is a little odd, I'll admit. I like Torterra. I've always liked Torterra. The grass ground is a unique typing. We don't see that pretty much at all beyond Torterra. And the fact it carries a bonsai garden on it is really freaking cool. I've always liked that concept with Torterra. The fact of the matter is, too, that Torterra, while not amazing, is not useless in the region by any stretch of the means. In fact, when you really break down, Torterra handles the first gym, no problem. It goes neutral with the second. You'll probably have Torterra by the fourth gym, because I think they all evolve roughly at the same time. And you'll definitely have by the 5th. But Torterra can handle itself all right within the 4th gym, so long as the Gyarados doesn't kill you. And then it can take on it can take on both. It's immune to the Electric Gym. It can take on the Steel Gym thanks to it being a ground learning Earthquake. So it's actually a pretty useful Pokemon in terms of how good it is in the region. It's just as useful, by the way, as Chimchar, who is higher on the list, obviously. But Treecko, yeah, for me, the Turtwig line's got to be goes in the number 6 spot. Coming in at the number 5, we're in the top 5 now, folks. Top 5, number 5 spot goes to the Treecko line. Now, I'll say this. Treecko might be among my favorite Pokemon. Treecko's got it's this cute wood gecko. Grovyle. Now, Grovyle to me is the perfect evolution of the base to the final. Like that, it's a Leaf Raptor. That's cool. That is awesome to me. And it learned at least what used to be its signature move until other Pokemon started learning it. Leaf Blade, which was awesome. Especially when you see in the anime, it's just this giant green scythe on their arm. That's awesome. And Sceptile is this dinosaur palm fern. It's awesome. It's a good line. It is, I think, the best line overall design-wise from the Hoenn series. In terms of how good it is, though, in terms of Hoenn, it's a little hit and miss. I mean, obviously, it goes well against the Rock Gym. It handles the final water guy as long as he's not using an Ice type on you, or Ice type attack on you. Handles the final water gym, and it handles the Psychic Gym pretty well, thanks to Leaf Blade and the Rock type versus the Grass type. Other than that, though, it's kind of neutral. But ultimately, like design-wise, I always loved the Sceptile line, the Treecko line. They are, to me, the best of the Hoenn starters, bar none. In terms of the best, though, of a different set of starters, the best of the Alola starters, to me, hands down, that was Rowlet. And look, Decidueye, I'll say this, Decidueye might be my favorite starter. Because it is it's Robin Hood. It's a ghost grass Robin Hood owl. That is just a badass design. I know there's people who don't like it, and that's cool. That's fine. It's just a badass looking starter. It can fire the arrows. It's just a cool looking dude. And Rowlet, look at that. It's so adorable. It's got a bow tie. Unfortunately, the only reason it really didn't go any higher was the fact that Dartrix is a weird transition. It's not a terror. It's compared to some of the other ones. It's not the weirdest to be at the number 4 spot. It's not the weirdest, but it is definitely odd. Like it's this emo owl. I don't quite get it, but all right. But what also killed it was, quite frankly, how useful it is in the actual playthrough. It's good against the water and the rock. That's about it. Because you're not going to have to, unless you're going to grind to the umpteenth degree on the first island, you're not going to be able to do anything. You're not going to be able to take the benefit of the grass trial with, you know what? Oh, crap. I completely freaking forgot it was flying type. Because it learns at least a flying type. I think it learns wing attack, doesn't it? And oh no, I think I've completely messed this list up because it can take on the Kahuna. It can take on the first island Kahuna, being a flying type initially, and that means it can take on the grass starter, grass challenge too because of its flying type. Oh no, I think I've actually screwed this up severely for Rowlet. Let me just take a look real quick here. Can I adjust this really quick? Yeah, I can adjust this really quick. So give me 1 second here. Replacing. So actually, in the actual number 4 spot is not Rowlet. It is actually Cyndaquil. It's actually the Cyndaquil line. Cyndaquil is the one that can do the best amount of damage in Johto. Being a fire, it can take on the Bug Gym. It can take on the Ice Gym. It can take on the Steel Gym. It can take on 3 of the gyms on its own, which automatically gives it a much higher edge up than the other gyms, or than the other starters. Excuse me. Than the other starters. And it's a nice, Cyndaquil is adorable. It's a little echidna. Quilava is a sleek design. I love it. It's a fire weasel. Love it. I'll admit, I do like Typhlosion a lot. I think Quilava is a little better in design. Just because there's not much of a difference. And I think that's the big problem. There really isn't much of a difference. But, yeah. It's not a bad design at all. It's just, you just go for a slightly bigger Quilava. At the number 2 spot, or number 3 spot, is Bulbasaur line. The Bulbasaur line is the OG grass line, and is one of the best. It's also one of the ones that has the cleanest transition through its evolutionary cycle. It's this little dinosaur toad thing that has a ball bud in its back. Okay, Bulbasaur. That's one of the best cries too. Then turns into Ivysaur. Now it's looks a lot more mature compared to its original counterpart. And that bulb is starting to, like, the plant life is growing on it. The bulb is starting to grow. You can see this bud that wants to bloom. It's starting to get there. And then Venusaur. Now, Venusaur, I'll admit, Venusaur's a bit on the ugly side, but it's this giant, hefty monster dinosaur. It is also the best starter, bar none, to use in Kanto, because it handles the first two gyms on its own. It goes neutral. I think it's, I believe it's grass is resistant to electric. So it's, or at the very minimum, it's neutral. So it goes fine on that. It's neutral to the grass. What it has a benefit for, though, is its poison typing, meaning it can't be poisoned in Koga's gym. So it has that advantage. It can go against the ground gym as well with no problem whatsoever. So by that measure, I had to give it the edge in terms of usefulness. And just, I think it's the best overall, maybe not quite the best design, but the most coherent. Because War Turtles doesn't make sense in a couple areas, and Charmander's is pretty basic. Coming in at the silver medal spot now for the best starter is Chimchar, because I messed up with the Rowlet line severely. I feel so bad about that now. But no, the Chimchar line is that's a perfect line. I'm not gonna even though clearly I now put a Rowlet over it. This is a perfect line. It's also goes just as it goes toe to toe with Torterra for how well it handles its region. Because thanks to Mach Punch, it can take out the Rock Gym no problem. Clearly sweeps the Grass Gym. You're probably not going to have Infernape by the time you get to the Fighting Gym, but you'll probably be able to handle it all right. Obviously, you can't take on the Water Gym very well, and it's neutral against the Ghost Gym. But it handles the Steel Gym pretty easily, and it handles the Ice Gym without difficulty. That said, it goes pretty even with the Electric Gym. But it's freaking Sun Wukong. It is the Monkey King himself. And it's just bad, especially when you actually see that thing fight in the anime. Like, this thing is badass, man. It's a sleek, it's adorable chimp with a fire on its butt, turning into a monkey with a fire on its tail, and then this badass looking martial artist. See, this, as much as I like Blaziken, as much as Blaziken was a good firefighting starter, this is the perfect firefighting starter. This is the perfect one. So, just to recap real quick, Rowlet is my favorite starter of all time. Or favorite starter. Well, actually, it is close to my favorite starter. It is close, if not my favorite starter. But Rowlet is the best starter, in my opinion. A, because it actually goes a lot easier against the challenges because of the dual flying typing that it has before it turns into a grass ghost, which I completely negged on. I can't believe I did that. And with that dual typing, if you never underestimate, that's why Bulbasaur does the best out of the Kanto trio, because it's the only one it and Rowlet are the only two starters that start out with a dual typing. So you got to give credit where credit's due on that. And again, design-wise, it's freaking Robin Hood, man. It's this cute little bow tie owl. Dartrix is a little awkward, like I said, but still, it does fantastic ultimately. And I love my Decidueye. I mean, yeah, I'll have to restart the game to get ready to play again. But I can always restart again on our Decidueye. I love Decidueye. But now, seeing as we're near the end of nearly an hour-long video, let's get to it, and you all know who it is. What happened here? What happened here? Look, it's Tepig. It's adorable. It really is. I actually rated pretty highly as in terms of a starter, a base starter. It's an adorable little fire pig. Do you know how many routes you could have gone with that to make that cool? Even from a fighting standpoint. But instead you go all the way to Emboar, who, I'll admit, I've softened on Emboar a little bit. I've softened on Emboar. Because ever since My Hero came out, it's like, okay, it looks like Endeavor. Okay, that kind of softens the blow a little bit on Emboar. Pignite, though. Oh my god. Like, is it supposed to be a wrestler? A sumo wrestler? What is it supposed to be? Because it actually looks overweight. You see that image right there I got up on the screen? It actually looks overweight. Like it's got extra punch to it. It's not just round. It's like, it looks like it's carrying a little extra load. And it's just this derpy smile on its face. Whereas at least I'll give Emboar this. I don't love the design of Emboar, especially that like little tail. But at least the Firebeard is a cool idea, and at least it's got these cool tusks going with it. Pignite is just ugly. Like, Pignite is not a good-looking design at all. Now, let's be clear. Emboar, I don't love it still. It is my least favorite starter of all time. I think it's also the least best between design and effectiveness. Because when you really break it down, Tepig, or the Emboar line goes about even with the Oshawott line, who is a mono-typed starter. You dual-type it, you think you'd be better than the two monotypes. But no! Let's break it down real quick. Let's take the first gym out of the equation, because for obvious reasons. You might have your Tepig evolved into Pignite by the time you get to the second gym. Now, by the time you get to the second gym, it's still not a fighting-type Pokemon yet. Pignite, I believe, is still a pure fire-type Pokemon. When we get to... Let me get to the black and white Pokedex real quick. Black and white Pokedex. There we go. Black and white Pokedex. No, but Pignite is still a fire star... a pure fire starter. No, it's a fire... Okay, no, it does turn into a firefighting at that point. Great. Wonderful. Does it learn a fire type, a fighting type? Okay, it learns arm thrust. Great. That means it might be able to handle the normal type gym, assuming its speed is up to snuff, which it's only a base 55 speed. I'll tell you what, if you can get at least one fighting attack in on that gym, you'll probably be okay, especially on that Watchog who's just terrible, Then you can handle the bug gym fine. And you can handle your ice gyms fine. That gives you 3 out of the 8 gyms. That's not bad. Unfortunately, that fighting type also... Emboar is sadly a very glass cannon of a Pokemon. It has got insane physical stats in terms of attack. HP 110 attack and special attack, 100 special attack, 123 physical attack. It is monstrous. Doesn't do a lick of shit against the ground gym. It's not good against the electric gym, really, at all. It is terrible against the flying gym when you really break it down, because it has a 65 defense and special defense, and a 65 speed. You will get blitzed by the flying gym. And then you go to the dragon gym, and it's just going to wipe you out. So while it goes neutral with something like with basically the water starter, to me, it's no question. It is the weakest or the weakest starter of all time in terms of design, in terms of overall usefulness. And I don't play competitive, so that's what I'm getting at here. Ultimately, it's just it's a missed opportunity of a Pokemon. They really should have done something else with it. But it is what it is. We have it. So thanks for watching this nearly hour-long video. Hope you enjoyed. I don't plan to edit this down. Sometimes, we need an hour-long video. I know the Q&A, when I do, it's going to be at least an hour long, so sometimes we'll have this. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. As always, you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. And ideas for who would win, Star Wars, Super Magic, what if, anything you do on the channel, put that in the comments below as well, because that's at some point. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.